Welcome to In Her Voice. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am passionate about helping women live authentically by listening to their inner voice. Get ready to be inspired by women of all walks of life that have set aside their should-bes and not good enoughs and are standing in their true voice, the voice of wisdom that each and every one of us has inside. Hi, you guys. This is Kelly, and you are listening to In Her Voice. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm super excited to have Michelle Gomez on the podcast today talking about how to overcome imposter syndrome. And we're going to get into all of the details of that. But let me tell you, if you've ever felt like you're faking it and you're terrified someone's going to find out, this is exactly the episode that you want to listen to. It's so good. So good. Before I get to the interview, I want to share two things with you guys. And these are sort of timely. No, they're not sort of timely. They're really timely for this moment in time right now, which is August 28th, 2018. So if you're listening to this later, much later than this, thank you. And go head over to my website for lots of stuff that is pertinent to you right now. But for those of you that are listening in real time within about a week or so of this episode, I want to share with you, number one, that my Fall Mastermind is open for registration. And I should say, actually, it's open for application because I fill this with amazing women who have big ideas ready to be born into reality through application only. And let me tell you, we have had an amazing mastermind this summer. The women who were in the mastermind were like magic. I am not kidding you guys. They got so much done. We have someone who's starting off her career as a sound healer. We have someone who created a program to help peaceful mamas and use oils and meditation and art journaling. And she is bringing that out into the world. So many amazing things, books and podcasts. And gosh, it is just wild how much these women have accomplished in the summer. And so I'm really excited to have another round of the mastermind, which begins in September, and applications are open now. So if this is something that you're interested in, I would encourage you to submit an application, and then we will connect and talk to see if it's a good fit for you. The link for that is kellycovert.com/mastermind. And you can go to that link. You can read about what is entailed and the details of that. And also you can apply. So I'm excited to welcome in the new women for the Fall Mastermind to join the other women who are there already. And then the second thing, and this is so crazy, I'm writing a book, and I've committed to myself to write every single day for 30 days in September. And I've actually been writing for the past week every single day as well. So I'm going to be continuing my streak, so to speak. And I just had this urge the other day to invite you guys to join me. And so I'm calling this the 30 for Me challenge. And what it is you pick something that you feel your heart is really asking you to do. Maybe it's write every day. Maybe it's journal or meditate. Maybe it's moving your body. Maybe it's running. Maybe it's organizing your house every day. Whatever is the thing that you feel your inner voice is asking you to do, you can commit to doing it for 30 days. And those 30 days are for you. They're for you to help you feel good. They're for you to help you get past your excuses and finally do the thing, just like I'm doing with my book. And so if you want to join me for 30 for You, all you have to do is go to Instagram. That's where I'm doing everything. And you can find out more about it. I'm going to be doing a daily touch-in on Insta stories, and I'm going to have some prizes and lots of fun things. And you don't have to sign up. You don't have to be on my email list, although you might like to be. And it's just about doing something for you for 30 days. 30 for you. So head on over to Instagram and check me out at Kelly J. Covert and get connected and hooked into this amazing group of women that are going to be taking the next 30 days to do something for themselves, including me. Anyway, I want to get right to the interview with Michelle. Let me tell you a little bit more about her. Michelle Gomez is an accomplished business executive with nearly 2 decades worth of experience in the male-dominated transportation and logistics industry. She has been a strong advocate for women in the workforce, mentoring dozens of women to personal and professional success. A self-proclaimed reformed corporate burnout, Michelle managed to find a slower pace of career that allowed her time and space to address the imposter syndrome in her own life. Michelle then turned her attention to helping other high achievers recognize and overcome their own imposter syndrome struggles, writing a book about her own journey. Now she's bringing her story and experience to others, helping high achievers overcome imposter syndrome for their own career success. And I would add to that, for your own life success. This is not just about career success, you guys. This is about really understanding sort of your personality type when it comes to things and how that shows up in imposter syndrome, and steps, very real and practical steps that you can use to work on it right now. So let's get to the interview with Michelle. Michelle Gomez, thank you so much for being here on In Her Voice. I'm so excited to welcome you and introduce you to my listeners.
Oh gosh, Kelly, thank you for having me. What an honor.
Well, the honor is all mine. I'm sure of that. And let me tell you, I am so excited to talk to you today because your area of expertise, and it's not just book learning, I know, is all about imposter syndrome, which, it's a deep and wide topic. But I thought maybe the best place for us to start with you is for you to just share what imposter syndrome is and how you realized you were suffering from it.
Sure. So the imposter syndrome is a behavioral phenomenon coined in a 1982 article by 2 women from the Georgia State University. Sorry, that's Dr. Pauline Rose Clance and Dr. Suzanne Imez, and their article was called "The Imposter Phenomenon in High Achieving Women." And basically, it's a study that they did of 162 high achieving women that uncovered a pervasive pattern of dismissing accomplishments and believing that their success would disappear once others discovered the awful secret that they were in fact, quote unquote, imposters. So it's a behavioral phenomenon experienced by highly competent individuals where they have a difficulty internalizing their success. So instead they feel like frauds, phonies, somewhat undeserving of their success. And instead they attribute it to things like luck, chance, pretty much other outside factors, anything other than their own intelligence or competence.
Wow. I mean, wow. And I say wow because I'm 44 years old, and I feel that this sort of resonates with me on 2 levels, right? It resonates with me on the level of knowing that feeling, of having felt that exact thing. Like, oh, I'm not really smart. I just am really good at memorizing things.
Yep.
Or, right? I mean,
Yes.
like, it's almost like I feel like it's taking me right back to college, where I felt that I had to sort of like lower who I was almost, you know? And then the other part of it that resonates with me so much now is coming through and seeing this from the place of worthiness, from a place of knowing that I am enough right now. And gosh, like it makes me just want to weep with gratitude that my eyes were opened to the fact that I'm pretty dang amazing. Do you know what I mean? And,
absolutely.
And I'm so glad to share this with other women today because that's what I want all women to understand. It's just how amazing they are. Ugh.
Yes.
So good.
Yes.
So good. So in your own journey, when did you really start to begin to understand that, wait a minute, I don't have to feel this way? Like this whole feeling of not being good enough, of feeling like I'm faking my way through and I'm just getting lucky, that all my success is imagined or, will soon go away when people realize I'm just a fraud. When did you realize like you don't have to believe that? Like you don't have to buy into that.
So, I've pretty much struggled with feeling some form of inadequacy, but I couldn't put my finger on it. I had, for those, I did write a book. It's called Your Brilliance, and in my book, I explain a little bit of my personal journey, but just the past that I experienced in my life and where I had gotten to my career, I just always felt a need for validation. I needed someone to tell me that they were proud of me. I needed someone to tell me it was okay to be bold, to take risks, to make a move. I just always needed to check. I would call it a gut check, but it was more of a I want to make sure that everyone else thinks this is okay for me to do. And so that level of validation is tremendously exhausting when you've lived with it for as long as I had. And so it was about 3 years ago is when I realized I came to the realization that I had tapped into the reality of living as a corporate burnout. I was exhausted, working constantly. Not even if I physically wasn't at work, my mind was at work, my heart was at work. And because I had given so much of my identity into my career. And I had, I was married, I was a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister. I have so many other roles, but 80% of who I was going to my career, and everyone else had to split the 20% that was left. And of that 20%, 0 was spent on myself. It was no time spent on me, taking care of me. I had no self-care regimen. And I was just going constantly. And while I'm going, I'm looking for signs from people on the exterior to tell me it's okay. To tell me like, yeah, you're doing it. Good job. Keep going. Don't stop. And I got to a point where I just emotionally hit a wall. I was like, this is not sustainable. I can't continue like this. And I even remember calling my friend my friend Sandra. I called her. I said, Sandy, I don't know. I feel like something's going to give. I mean, I had already had experienced things like my hair falling out. I had broken out in hives, migraines coming on more consistently. It's just unhealthy stuff that my body was trying to tell me it was time to slow down. And I knew that if I stayed at my job, it wasn't going to stop because I had been there for so long, almost 12, 13 years, and they had gotten used to my pace. So I felt fearful about asking if it's okay that I slow down after I had already gotten them so accustomed to relying on me going at the pace that I was going. So I made a decision to pray. I prayed and I asked God to give me an opportunity that would allow me to continue to grow professionally, but still allow me to slow down. And I laugh about this now because I actually wrote this in my book. I know it sounds counterintuitive. Like, wait a second. So you want more, but you want to do less.
It's like everyone's dream, right?
Right. Yeah. But I'm like, God has already pulled me through so much. If anybody can do it, he can. Yeah. So I said, please, Lord, whatever you can do. I went on a couple high-end interviews. I was even flown out to Atlanta to meet with this company. And I didn't get the job. And I thought, oh, man. I was devastated because I thought this was for sure my chance to get out and do something else. But little did I know, he had another opportunity just waiting for me that came to find me. And I took this opportunity. It gave me a chance to work from home. And I was able to spend more time with my children, spend more time with myself, spend more time with my husband. And so having this freedom of time to go from having 20 plus employees to manage to 0, and now I'm just on my own, it was so freeing to be able to develop a morning routine and start taking better care of myself. And so that's when I started to evolve and do the work. And I had known about imposter syndrome for a while, but I had only solidified the fact that that was what I was experiencing. But I hadn't gotten to the point where I knew I need to work through this. Because now that I have the time to do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. So I have so much, like, I was like taking notes the whole time. So one of the things that really popped up to me, that stuck out to me, is you said that you were constantly seeking external validation. Like, you're doing great, keep it up, all of those things. But it's almost like, I feel like when we do that, what we're really looking for is proof that no one sees what we think about ourselves.
Oh my, yes. Yes. Like, as long as everyone else is getting fooled, because they don't know what's going on inside me right now.
Yeah.
But as long as everyone else thinks I'm perfect and everything's great, then I'm fooling everyone.
Oh my gosh, right? And it's
Yes.
so it's like we think like it's almost like we're telling ourselves that we're fueling with the validation, but what's really fueling us is the knowledge that no one has found us out yet.
Yes.
And the reason that we have to keep going back for another hit, it's like a drug, right? Is because as soon as like one compliment or, a pat on the back wears off, then you're like, oh my God, someone's going to find out. And then you have to, like, that anxiety pushes us to get back on the treadmill. It's like that cycle over and over and over again. And you know what it seems to me is that I bet that everyone who is in that feels really lonely.
It is very isolating because imposter syndrome there's 5 different competency types that we can get into later, but the competency types of the imposter experience, they all lead to a fearful shame. It's a fear that then ushers in shame. And so the fear is that people are going to figure it out, that you struggle with this, or that you're struggling, that you're not as confident as everyone expects you to be or thinks you to be. And then the minute that they tap into that, or that it's exposed in some way, shape, or form, you feel shame. And sometimes it's not even from the outside world. It's just you find something in your experience that solidifies that fear a little bit, and then it makes it okay for the shame. Like, for example, if I'll use something as simple as weight gain. Okay, let's say like, oh gosh, I put on about 7 pounds. Oh, I don't think anyone's noticed because nobody said anything. But then, like, you'll be shopping with a girlfriend, and you point out a dress that you like, and she's like, "Oh, you want to try it on? Yeah, sure." And she's like, "Okay, great. Let me grab the large." And you're like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
So she doesn't think I'm a small. So the 7 pounds are obvious. And there you go. There's the shame. You see what I mean?
Oh my God, yeah.
So just the simplest comment, the simplest, we know this is going on, but we don't want anyone else to know. And so the minute someone even notices a little bit, the shame that isn't experienced is just, it could be paralyzing.
It really can. And what's so interesting about this is I really believe that we get what we look for. Okay. So what I mean by that is, if we believe about ourselves that, we're not really that smart, or, all of these horrible things, that we're a fraud, that we're going to get found out, that we don't deserve the life that we're living, that's what we're focused on. And that's what we will see. Even if that's not the intention. Like, your girlfriend wasn't thinking, well, Michelle has put on a couple pounds, she needs the large. She's just like, oh, this size looks like it might fit you, like totally unrelated. But what we see is what we've been focusing on.
Right. And I'm an avid reader. I read a lot. And so one of my favorite authors is Brene Brown.
Yes, mine too.
And
life-changing.
I just love her.
Life-changing.
I love her. Yes. And in her book, Braving the Wilderness, she reiterates what you're saying in these words. She says, don't look out in the world and look for signs that you don't belong, because you will always find them.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so true. I tell my kids this. This is a really hard lesson, I think, for young people to understand. But I tell them all the time, hey, you're gonna get what you look for. So if you're looking for people to not like you, you're gonna see that. But if you're
Yes.
looking for your friends and you're looking for the people who love you, you will see that. So we really get
Yes.
to decide what we want to focus on and what we want to pull in to our lives. And I feel that when you talk about taking this time when you stepped away from your corporate job to, quote, do the work, that this is part of the work.
Yes.
So what else was the work for you?
So I had to certainly change my thought pattern around I wanted to be more present than perfect. And so I started a morning routine. That's where it started. And at the time I thought, okay, I need to dive into more about what my competency type is, because out of the 5 competencies, usually imposter syndrome sufferers are a combination of 2 or 3 of them. And so I figured out what my combination was, and then I was able to identify my triggers. And then doing that, I could then start to do the work of reframing those thought patterns so that I'm prepared when I notice those triggers coming up.
Oh, yeah.
I'm prepared to change so that those internal thoughts no longer are part of my experience. It's something that I deal with before I get there. And so I started simple. With the basics. When I started doing this work 3 years ago, I would wake up in the morning. I did my morning devotional, and then I would pray. I would read and then journal. So it started just those things. It was about in 30 minutes, 30, 40 minutes. And I started with this is where I started reading a lot more. I read about a book a month. And I started with the most basic book, and it's been a life changer. But The 4 Agreements
So
by Don Miguel Ruiz is where I started.
let me just pause here and say, this is the second interview that I've done today. And you're the second person today who has brought that book up, which I have never read before. And
You have to read it, Kelly.
I am
Oh my
also
gosh.
an avid reader. I mean, I have like 3 or 4 books going at a time. So I am making a note. So will you say it again? Because I think I spoke over the author. The 4 Agreements.
And it's by Don Miguel Ruiz.
Okay.
Mexican author. And it's such a simple approach to minimizing your suffering. That's it. It's just a matter of changing your agreements with yourself and changing the agreements that you have with the outside world, just to reduce the amount of suffering that we do with things like overthinking, making assumptions, easily offended, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I still work through it every day. I mean, it's a constant work, right? It's a loop of trying to master these thought patterns. And so I make it a point to go back to that book periodically, just to re-up what I remember learning. And he even recommends, like, master one agreement, and then once you've mastered that one, and go to the next one and master that one. There's 4 of them. And that was such a life-changing book. It was just so clear.
Well, and thank you for saying it's something that you go back to, that it's something that you revisit and practice. Because I always point this out when my guests say this, because I want my listeners to understand that it's not one and done, you guys. This is a practice. This is our life's work. And when we're in it every single day and having that presence of mind to pull ourselves out of the thoughts that aren't serving us and to bring to the front of our hearts and minds the voice that speaks truth to us, our inner wisdom, the place that is in love with who we are, that's our work. And then that's what enables us to be living aligned and free to do our purpose. But we first have to be, then we do. So I just want to say thank you for pointing that out.
Of course, it is important. You can't make an impact on others until you've spent some time doing stuff for yourself. And I learned that the hard way.
Yeah. Well, and thank goodness for people like you who are sharing this. So not everyone has to learn it the hard way.
Right.
It's not required. Like, there's no requirement that says you must learn this the hard way.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's why I wrote this book, and I'm sharing this journey and trying to get it into other people's thought processes so that they understand that career success doesn't mean you have to become a slave to only doing that. You can be great at everything else, but first you got to be good to you before you can be good to anyone or anything.
Oh, yes. I feel like we should just stop there because that's so good. First, you have to be good to you before you can be good to anybody else or good at any other thing. So good. So you mentioned that there are 5 that's a hard word to say, competency types for
Yes.
imposter syndrome. Can you quickly sort of outline those for us?
Sure. So the imposter syndrome struggler will identify certain competency types, and that's how they judge their performance. So, or when they look at somebody, they see somebody who they view as competent depending on these 5 characteristics. And they'll say, oh, yeah, that person is competent. So they expect that from themselves. And so here's the first one. The perfectionist is a
Amen.
person who the person who focuses on how something is done. So they have an extremely high expectation of themselves, and they tend to set the bar very, very high. And when they don't achieve that goal at that high level of expectation, they're likely to experience harsh inner criticism and shame. And the perfectionists, when they fall into that harsh inner criticism and shame, it could take them days to shake that off. Like they might carry it for a few days. So
Or
a
years.
95%.
Or years.
It's very hard. I mean, basically a 92 or 93% on your paper is not enough. If they didn't get 100, they feel bad about it. And so that's the perfectionist. Then you have the natural genius. The natural genius expects to have natural abilities, an easy flow of intelligence that would result in being able to approach a task or goal with the utmost of ease. If a task doesn't seem easy for them, the assumption is that you're just not cut out to do this. This isn't for you. You beat yourself up for not being naturally inclined at something you've never done, and you experience shame. So that's the natural genius. The expert, they believe that true competency is possessing as much knowledge and skill as possible. So they're always trying to retain new information, always trying to execute all forms of new mastery, and they're seeking out all form of credential, experience, and that's what drives their action. So these are the people with multiple degrees, multiple PhDs, always going for that new training, constantly seeking out that new certification program, because for them, being stagnant then makes them feel impotent and shrouded in shame. I actually call this competency always thriving, never arriving.
Oh, yeah.
Like always going up, never really just sitting here like, okay, I think I've done enough. And I used to be, I still struggle with the imposter syndrome. It doesn't really go away. You just have to learn how to frame it and work around it. But I completed my MBA in December. And up until I completed my MBA, I was the expert. I wanted to learn the next thing, always go for the next certification, always go to the next training, and it wasn't until this year and when I started doing I've done my thought work for 3 years, but it wasn't until after December that I was like, okay, you know what? I'm good. Don't even talk to me about a PhD no.
That's awesome.
I just want to write a book now and help others and stop making it about me for a while, know? So the fourth one is the rugged individualist, also known as the soloist. And their thought is that true competence is in the person who can approach a task or goal on their own. So no help or assistance or aid of any kind, because the thought behind this competency is that if they needed to ask for help, it would solidify the fact that they're clearly a phony, and that feeling would then invoke the experience of shame. And the last one is probably the most common, but it's the superwoman, superman, super student. You can call it the superhuman. Now, grad students are actually heavy imposter syndrome sufferers. Harvard Graduate School did a study 2 years ago, and over 70% of the graduate school students felt that they got into the program by mistake.
Oh my gosh, that's fascinating.
Isn't it funny?
Yeah.
Like they're like, I think somebody didn't look at my application very thoroughly. I think I just kind of slid in under the radar, and do you know how hard it is to get into Harvard Graduate School? And these kids are thinking like, I don't belong here, right?
Wow.
So the superwoman, the superman, super student, their belief is that you should be able to fulfill all of your duties masterfully. And this is a really big one for the ladies. Because that means you got to be the perfect wife, mother, sister, daughter, friend, employee, student. Oh, and then make time to go to the gym so that you look good doing it all.
Yeah.
Right? So being able to juggle it all and make it look easy. That's what drives this idea, this competence. And if you're not handling your business awesomely with all of the hats that you wear, then clearly you're a fraud, and in comes the shame.
Oh my gosh, this is so fascinating to me. Like these, almost just like archetypes, right? Because I see where I fall and where I have fell like in the past and where I still fall. And then I can also see like where my kids, the natural inclinations of my kids, like my youngest is definitely like this natural genius. Like he expects to like pick something up and be able to do it immediately. And if he doesn't, then he doesn't try anymore. And what's super interesting to me about that is I always like look at him as sort of like this underachiever who like doesn't care, and someone that I have a hard time relating to as a recovering perfectionist. But now what I see is his, sort of lackluster performance in school is just his feeling like, well, if it's not coming easily to me, it's not really my thing. And
well, because maybe to him, that's what competence is. So if he sees somebody who can just naturally pick something up and do it well, he's impressed by that. He considers that as competence. Yeah. So when he can't do it, it's a part of why he gets frustrated and doesn't want to continue.
Yeah, well, and I think he has the experience of also being able to do things with ease. Like he picked up a trumpet and he could just play it the first day that he picked it up. And now 3 years later, he doesn't understand why he can't play a harder piece of music without practicing it. Because his expectation is he should just be able to do it. And oh my gosh, this is so interesting. So do you mind sharing, you shared a little bit, but which sort of, you said sometimes people have 2 or 3 of these competencies. Which ones come up for you?
So I actually coined this term in my book. It's an acronym. I call it the UConn, your unique cocktail of needs. So whatever, that's what your combination. My UConn is I'm the perfectionist, I'm the expert, and the superwoman.
Yeah.
So like the expert, like I said, after I graduated with my MBA, I've required less of a need, and because I've done so much, I've done it all. Kelly, I've done the emotional intelligence work. I've done sales efforts works. I've done like the academics. I've done leadership training. I've done so much. And I've even gone through like broadcast journalism training. Like, it's like, okay, guys, now can I just read books and write books and help people? Can I just do that? Like,
Well, what's so funny about it is even as you say it, this is what you said. All right, guys, can't I just read books and write books and help people? It's almost like, again, you're asking someone else when really it's the question that we have to ask ourselves.
It's true, because it's not like anyone was pushing me like, okay, you're going to go get that PhD now, right? Like nobody's asking me. It's just an internal like always thriving, never arriving. And I finally decided that 2018, there's a level of shame about being okay with being great, because I really had to be okay with. That's why I called my book Own Your Brilliance.
Yeah.
Because I had to own it and be okay about it. Because a lot of times when you accept your brilliance and live in it, people have a hard time with that.
Yes, they do.
People can make you feel like you're arrogant, like you're being boastful, and it's like, do you know how long it took for me to like and appreciate all the work that I've done? I'm not going to let anyone else shame me out of this one. Mm-hmm. I've already lived with shame as I went into every class and I took every test, after I went to every interview and every employee review. I went through so much. I mean, because nothing makes you work through that stuff like your internal dialogue. And then when you do the stuff like emotional intelligence and Myers-Briggs and Strength Finders, those tests are great, but they also reflect a lot of things on you that you probably hadn't dealt with.
Yes.
And you're like, man, okay, it's a good thing I'm only seeing these results and nobody else is reading them, But I mean, it's like I've already had so much shame thrown at me through my own volition. I don't need it from the outside world. So I had to work through that. I had to be be okay with it. And that's why my self-care regimen and my morning routine started to develop over time, so that because I had already sort of told myself, when I'm graduating with my MBA, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done. And so I need to be okay with just being okay and being myself. In 2018, I'm just going to sit in my brilliance and try to reflect it on other people and give them space to be brilliant too.
Amen, sister. You know, this has been coming up. This exact conversation has been coming up for me over and over with my guests and in my own thoughts. Just this idea of like, it is about time for women. And when I say women, I mean every single one of you that's listening right now, to show up and play big and shine brightly. Because every moment that we're holding back or that we're dimming our light, we are doing a disservice to the world, because we were put here for a reason. And when we hold back on our true gifts like that, we're denying the world what has been given through us. And it's not even, it becomes like not even about ourselves, right? It's about living through to our inspired potential, to live through and outwardly what we've been given. And I almost feel like a strong responsibility to that, to standing up and saying, this is what I'm brilliant at. Because when we do that, it's so empowering for other women. And you know what? It can be intimidating for other people. And that's their own stuff. And we just have to let those people work through their own stuff. But if we let those people hold us back, we're holding back our true purpose from the world. I really believe that.
Correct. And I couldn't agree with you more on the sense of responsibility, because look at what we have at our fingertips now. Podcasts, blogs, books. You know, we have now people that are sitting here with these open hearts that are willing to share their journey and help minimize the suffering for the people coming behind them. And I mean, like my family, my parents, you know, my great grandmother, you know, I wish they would have written a book, because then I could read what they went through. Yeah. You know, they come from a generation where secrets keep you safe. And so asking about like, what was a part of your journey? What was your childhood like? Like, what were your thoughts when you went through that situation? It can be a little bit like pulling teeth, because they come from a generation where sharing is taboo. You know, it's like, oh, just get over it. That's in the past. Nobody thinks about that anymore. It's like, no, you know, we now live in a generation where the doing the work is not shrouded in shame.
Yeah.
It's okay. You can talk about it. And so it's our responsibility to usher that stuff in as people who have these platforms to deliver a message. Like, it's okay. You know, your brokenness doesn't scare me.
No.
It doesn't. You feel free to be broken in front of me. You're safe here.
Exactly. Because we also have been broken. And I really believe when it comes to shame, Brene Brown, you got to go read Brene Brown, anything and everything written by her. But I know what she says, and I believe it's endearing greatly. She talks about when we shine light onto our shame, that kills it. Like, shame cannot survive in the light.
It can't.
And
it can't handle it.
Right. and that is the secret weapon to dealing with all of the perfectionism, all of the things that are really holding you back from experiencing joy and love and acceptance and belonging. All of that can be worked on by shining light, by speaking it out, by not hiding behind that anymore.
Right. And I see how this plays out in the home life. You know, it's kind of, I've reverted to that phrase, happy wife, happy life. When a woman knows in confidence what her position is, she knows exactly who she is in her home. She has no concerns about the stability of her marriage, of her parenting. She feels safe in her home, and she's standing in her position from a place of worthiness. Now imagine taking that into the workplace. When a woman shows up at work with that same level of brilliance, like, this is who I am, and I'm here to do work, and I believe in what I can do, and if you just let me do it, I promise you, your life will be better. I've seen it. I've seen women show up to their leadership roles from that sense of worthiness. And so they don't have to be fearful or ashamed of the imposter syndrome anymore. It's like, no, I'm going to give you the tools to understand who your Yukon is, what your triggers are, and how we need to reframe your thoughts so that you can show up to work and make just as much of an impact as you would at home. Yes. And so that's why I thought it was so important to do this work.
And oh my gosh, we're so glad that you're doing it, Michelle. It's needed. Okay, so
thank you.
I have an opportunity for you in the shape of a question. Okay. What is your brilliance?
Gosh, that's a good one. I would have to say my brilliance is the ability to see people. I think when you have been through some things in your own life, you kind of develop like a third eye. And with this third eye, you can just really see through a lot of the behaviors that others would deem as, being difficult or angry or judgmental, and, all these ways that people deal with hurt. Because, we've heard before, hurt people. Right? And so I'm able to, with my third eye, view people with a sense of brilliance. Now, I can't excuse their behavior, but I have a way of just kind of sitting them down and say, okay, what happened? Let's talk to the child inside of you. Or what happened that made you this hard? What are you afraid of? What scares you? And I have a way, if you've watched any other of my interviews that I've been in or podcasts that I've been on, I don't know what it is about my energy, but I have a way of giving them a space where it's okay for them to share some of their brokenness with me. And I feel honored every time that someone does that. Like someone say, oh, I never said this before, but my dad leaving when I was young, that really hurt me.
Yeah.
Or, oh, I had a boss that made advances towards me and I never got over that. The fact that I kept my mouth shut for so many years actually is why I'm so angry. That kind of thing, and so I'm grateful for this third eye and this energy that God has blessed me with that gives people a safe space to talk to me, because we're all just trying to walk each other home, and so if they give me that, they share their spirit with me, it's a gift. And I get when I get gifted those moments is when it's when my brilliance shines the most, because I can share their brokenness in a space of empathy and love and hopefully try to change their direction.
Oh, Michelle, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your brilliance with us. I love what you said. I wrote it down. We're all just trying to walk each other home. That is so, yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you again.
Thank you.
We need you doing this work in the world because it is making a difference for sure. If any of my listeners, and I'm sure all of them, want to go check you out and connect with you on social media and all of that fun stuff and read your book, why don't you tell them how they can find that stuff?
Sure. I'm actually going to have a link that is available for all your listeners, and they're going to get some cool freebie stuff for themselves. And it's the link is www.michelle, that's MICHELLE, M for Martha, my middle name, Michelle M. Gomez, GOMEZ.com/inhervoice. And if you go to that website, if you share that on your podcast for the description of the podcast, they can go to that link. They can get a free download of my book. You can get a free assessment so we can identify what your Yukon is. And I'm also offering a free 30-minute strategy session for anyone who wants to discuss their Yukon and how they can learn to work around it.
Cool. That's fantastic.
Yes. But I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. And I think that's it. Yeah, Facebook, Instagram, and I have a YouTube channel as well. I can share those handles with you, but they'll also be available on that link for your listeners.
Yes.
So the Michelle M. Gomez / In Her Voice are just for you listeners, Kelly Covert's listeners only. That's just special for you guys. So I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you. And you know what I will do is I will link to that directly in the podcast app that you are listening to. So if you go to the info on the podcast episode in your app on your phone, it will be right there live, and you can shoot on over to Michelle's website and check all of those goodies out. I already checked it out. It's awesome. And I already followed Michelle, MG Success Coach, on Instagram. So you guys can go go follow her and be connected with her in that way. So Michelle, I always ask my listeners one final question. And that is, in your life right now, what is your inner voice asking of you?
My inner voice is asking me to continue to create a space for people to dream bigger than what they have been to this point, to continue making that okay, and eliminating fear as a part of their experience. And the only way to do that is to show up that way.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be afraid. I'm just going to, I've been given an assignment in this life, and this is me fulfilling it. And so I just want to help others who seek to do the same.
Oh, so good. So good. So Michelle, I just want to tell you, I feel your fire. And it's really interesting because I talk to a lot of women on this show, and I always feel different things. And we're not face to face, but I can feel you, and I feel fire. And I just want to say thank you for coming on today and sharing that fire with my listeners, sharing that challenge for all of us to own our brilliance. So thank you for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And thank you to anyone who has listened in. And in advance, I thank you, Kelly, as well, because the work that you're doing is tremendously needed in this world. And I'm grateful for people like you who have a servant's heart that want to spread such messages as this one.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much for listening. I really hope that you're able to get something from this episode that you can take and apply in your life right away. And if you really loved it, please share it with your friends. Take a screenshot, post it in your social media, in your Insta stories, on your Facebook, and tag me at Kelly J. Covert, because when you share, that is like life to me. Like, no kidding, you guys. It helps so much to spread the word about In Her Voice and to really create a greater impact. And that is my mission in this world, is to help women create an impact. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Just remember, always and every single day, you are worthy.